just be patient and listen, and just try and maybe, I don't know, I mean, ask if there's a way that you can help them, or ask if there's something that you can do that would help them, or just ask them, what could I do that would make would make your life a little easier. And maybe it's just to listen to them and just take time, and teach your family too, like teach your family.
Well, welcome to Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland Labrador's first podcast about stuttering. My name is Greg O'Grady, and I'm a person who stutters and a co-host of Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland Labrador's first podcast about stuttering, along with my co-host.
And I'm Katelyn Mayo. I'm a future speech language pathology student, and I'm Greg's co-host on this podcast.
Some Stutter Law mission is dismantling and rebuilding stuttering. Let's start listening. Some Stutter Law mandate is in the spirit of Newfoundland Labrador humor, robust and frank interactive discussions. Some Stutter Law podcast aims to rebuild confidence and hope for today's and tomorrow's person who happens to stutter by dismantling stuttering myths, stigmas, stereotypes, and barriers.
The objectives of Some Stutter Law podcast are supporting, raising awareness, and increasing understanding and acceptance of stuttering, providing people who stutter, their families, professionals, students, and the general public with current information, research, and resources about stuttering, and promoting advocacy and support for people who stutter.
Today, some stutter would law would welcomes uh, April Kennedy. April is is a person of a son who stutters. April, would you like to share share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor, actually, to be asked to do this. My name is April Kennedy, as you've said. I'm the mom of three boys. I have twin boys who are 21, and another son who is he's 18. Sorry, he just turned 18. So one of my twins is a person who stutters, and he started stuttering when he was a younger boy. We really didn't know quite what to do to help him out. So, I've had a lot of experience as a parent with a person who stutters, and through my own search, really, of a way to help him and to be a good support to him, which I have since learned I wasn't a very good support to him. But throughout the years, I've tried my best, and sometimes they weren't the best options, but that's my story. I'm a mom of three young men. I won't call them boys anymore. Yeah.
When you mentioned April that you know that you weren't a good support for him earlier. Would you mind in elaborating on this?
Sure. Well, I didn't understand. Well, I'll go back, because nobody in my family has stuttered. None of my siblings, none of my family. I don't have a large family, but I had never come across stuttering before. Only, what you'd see in the movies or shows, or, you'd meet people, maybe out and about who stuttered, but I had never experienced it personally. So when he was younger and he began to stutter, I thought, well, maybe he'll just grow out of it. Maybe it's something that'll go away. And so I can't even remember, to be honest with you. It was probably grade 4. So he would have been probably 9 or 10, possibly, that I noticed it, more obviously. And I didn't really know how to deal with it. So I would try and say, stop, and again, I kind of have a memory block of when they were younger. I don't remember a lot. I was raising twins. I had a third child, and my life was busy. So but I just remember, thinking, well, maybe he'll grow out of it, you know, maybe in a way hoping he'd grow out of it because I didn't know how to approach it. So as the years went on, it didn't get any better. He began more of a stammer, what I would call a stammer. He started with the physical features. I'm not sure the correct terminology, but his jaw would sort of shift to the side, and he would sort of, his eyes would go a different way. And I thought, okay, this is, I didn't know what to do. So I would basically tell him to stop, which now I know is not the correct thing. I would tell him to breathe. I would get angry with him, and sort of say, look, just stop it. Just stop and take a breath and try again. And so that, I don't think I know my approach wasn't the correct approach. Now that I've understood a lot more about people who stutter, I understand what comes with the person who stutters, the anxiety, they can't stop it. And so, I just feel like I wasn't a very good parent. It wasn't a good support system to him. And my husband, we both reacted similar ways. We would get impatient, and, it wasn't the right thing to do.
It seems to be a common thing that I've heard, is because there's not a lot of information or resources out there for parents about stuttering. And so they don't know what to do. So that's, it seems to be common. And I'm wondering what was the turning point for you? What made you start to learn more and shift your understanding of stuttering?
Yeah, I can pinpoint that right to the day, because my son was in grade 11, I believe, at this point. He was from what I could see, he was a very confident young man. If he was required to do a presentation in school, he would do his best to do an oral presentation in school. He would come home physically tired, mentally tired. He was starting to have a lot of pain across his chest and muscular pain. And I had taken him to the doctor, and I thought, maybe it's like an inflammation of some cartilage, or maybe it's some, we didn't know what it was, but he was getting, concerned with this pain that he was having in his chest, sort of all in this upper region here. And so I brought him to the doctor, and I said, he's having a lot of pain. Oh, maybe it's growing pains. It could be costochondritis, they called it. It could be that his skeleton, like his chest, is growing, faster than the cartilage, and it's just causing him discomfort. So here's some naproxen. Here's some Aleve. Take this regularly for however long. So it was probably like 3 months he was taking this every day, and the pain, it got better, but it would never quite go away. So that was one part of it that it didn't ring a bell at the time, but he did do a presentation in grade 11, oral presentation for a teacher, and she allowed him to do it privately. So it got to the point with some of the presentations that the teachers would ask Cameron, would you prefer to do it, just me and you one-on-one? Would that be easier? So he decided to do, it was an English presentation. And after he had done the presentation, he came home that day, and he said, asked if I could talk to him upstairs privately. And I said, yes. And he told me how difficult this presentation had been, how physically exhausting it was, and that the teacher had suggested that perhaps he go back to speech therapy. And at that point, he was agreeable. I had mentioned it many, many times over the years, but I don't think he was ready, and I don't think I was maybe the right person to suggest it. So we went to see a speech pathologist, local speech pathologist, and I asked if I could sit in on the first meeting, just because, I'm a mom. I like to know what's happening. I'd like to see what I can learn, because I want to learn. And he said yes. He was 16. He said, yeah, I don't mind if you sit in. So we sat in, and she was asking him different questions, and they were discussing things back and forth, and she had asked him about his anxiety levels. So she said, okay, when you're home and you're in your room, you've got your music on, whatever, what's your anxiety level? He said, 2 or 1 or 0. When you're in school, just just in class, no presentations, nothing. Well, maybe a 5 or a 6. Okay, what if you have a presentation? Well, it would be a 9. And then she said, how about at home when you're home with your family? And he said it would probably be an 11. And you could have picked me up off the floor. That's the moment that I thought, I'm not doing a good job here. And it was also at that meeting that I realized that all this pain and all this pain that he had been in was from his speech. Because he was speaking from his upper chest using his neck. And once the speech pathologist said that, and I mentioned about this, having all this pain and taking these medications for about 3 months, when she changed his approach to his breathing, that pain went away. So that was great. But that was the moment that I realized that I needed to change my approach. Yeah. Because hearing that home was the most stressful place was hard to hear.
I'm wondering, April, how is your son doing now in terms of the confidence level,
Well,
speech?
he's a really confident kid. He's now working for Verifin. He did the computer engineering program, and he landed a job for a work term with Verifin, and they hired him for part-time and they hired him full-time. And he makes phone calls, Greg, to banks in the US, and he has conversations with people on Zoom. He has phone conversations with people on a daily basis, and he's very confident. And I've asked him before, is he nervous when he's doing this? Like I've asked him, because especially now in such a virtual world, well, I mean, it would be virtual anyway, but he works from home. And he said, he doesn't really think about it, to be honest. And I asked him does he let people know? Because I know this is something that I've heard with people who stutter, is sometimes they would prefer to let the person know, when they're on the call, okay, I am a person who stutters. So, and I asked him, do you ever do that? And he said, no, I don't. I just, I'm very proud of the way he seems to be handling it. Yeah.
Like I know April, that a lot of parents tend to experience some guilt about when they have a child that stutters. Would you like to share about this?
I think most of my guilt comes from the way that I've reacted to it over the years. I don't feel guilty because my son has a stutter. I don't feel guilty about that at all. But I think the way that to know that some of the anxiety that he was feeling was the highest at home had to be part of the way that we were reacting to his stutter. And, rather than just letting him, speak and stutter and stammer as much as he needed to, we would try and fix it. Not knowing how to fix it, but we would try and fix it. And the way we would fix it was just to tell him, just stop. Well, you can't just stop. I mean, I talk a lot. You can't just tell me to stop talking. Like you don't tell someone to stop. I mean, it was him trying to communicate. And, in a house with 3 young boys, they were always talking over the other one. I mean, they still do. They're 21 and 17. They need to be heard. So, there was always talking in our house. But most of my guilt is maybe the anxiety that I may have caused him. And I hope, I was told once from a teacher that you never break your child's spirit. You can, one stop it or don't do that is more damaging than, it'll never be replaced by however many, great jobs. So I always thought maybe, I did have that guilt that maybe I was breaking his spirit when he was younger. But I mean, he has turned out to be very confident from what I can see. He does have anxiety. I mean, there's no doubt he's he does have anxiety. But I don't know how much of that is just who Cameron is, or if it is, you know, with the person with the stuttering. I don't understand that enough myself.
Yeah, I think that there's a big kind of within, just because I am constantly reviewing the literature and things like that, there's a lot of conflict trying to understand how much of anxiety is anxiety and how much of anxiety is caused by stuttering when you're a person who stutters. So it's a source of confusion for more than just you. One thing I was thinking is, I mean, as a parent of someone who stutters, or someone with any sort of communication disorder or any disability, really, it takes a toll on you seeing them struggle to do something as simple as speak. I'm wondering what kind of supports might have been helpful for you. Like, what could a speech language pathologist have done to make your experience helping your child easier?
Well, Cameron did start with speech language speech language therapist in the school system when he was in grade 4. It was suggested through the school, so we went with it, but it wasn't ideal at the time. It was in a closet, pretty much a broom closet. She had a small table, and she tried, you know, her best with Cameron at the time. So there was, the only communication I had at that point was just, you know, a game that was sent home, or, you know, some small, you know, information sheets and things like that, just on ways that I could help him. So there wasn't a lot of one-on-one contact at that point. He grew very frustrated with that episode of speech therapy. Number one, it was in a closet, and number two, it was at lunchtime or recess, which sort of made him, you know, a little more singled out, because in grade 4, he had a very rough year in grade 4. He was mocked, and, you know, there was, you know, times that he was made fun of. And so he had a rough year. So he just decided enough's enough. And the speech therapist actually came to me and said, this isn't working for me. And most importantly, it's not working for Cameron, but this isn't working for us as a team. So she gave, you know, we stopped it at that point. I think it's important for speech language pathologists to maybe maybe make time. I know you don't have a lot of time, but maybe make time to speak with the parents, and sort of have a one-on-one with the parent, and not necessarily with the child, depending on the age of the child. But I really, really, truly feel that education from the speech language therapist with the parent would be a really great thing. Even just 1 hour. Or
no, I absolutely agree. That's something that I have thought about a lot. There's a lot of things that, you know, very simple ways that, you know, you can modify your home environment to make speech easier. And people just don't know about it because there's not a lot of contact between speech language pathologists and parents, especially in the school system.
Oh, the school system was terrible. And it's not the fault of the school. I mean, it's not the fault of the speech language therapist, because she was fantastic. But the whole system is lacking. And then, you know, once we did go to the speech language therapist, I'm so glad that I sat in, or that, you know, he allowed me to sit in on that first meeting, because that was a huge eye opener for me. Yeah. And then of course I found this group, which was like a godsend, and it has changed a lot for me with the NLSA. So, but I really think education. I just think parental or support care, you know, caregiver. I think education is the most important thing.
You know, when you say that there's deficits in the educational system, April. What do you think the educational system needs to better understand and support people who stutter, but not only people who stutter, but parents of people who stutter? I'm talking about principals, teachers, guidance counselors.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's education. I think if, you know, if it would be possible, to have like speech language therapists go in and do presentations at schools or have a PD day. I mean, teachers have PD days. If it would be possible to have a speech language pathology PD day, just to educate. Again, it's all education. It's education. And, um, I've said it before, um, at a different time where we spoke, Greg, but the problem is not with the person who stutters. The problem is the people who react to the people who stutter. And that really has struck me. Um, when I watched, I know you had John Garson on as a guest, and when I watched his film, that's what struck me, is that there's nothing wrong. People who stutter are no different than myself. Um, it's just the way that we as a society react to people who stutter. That's what bothers me. And I still am, and I was a bad like I didn't react well. But I think education. I just think people need to be educated, and PD day would be phenomenal. Half a PD day, I think, just to educate teachers that, you know, don't pick on that. Don't choose that child to speak in class. Don't purposely make that child speak and read a paragraph in class. If the child is uncomfortable, don't do it. Um, if the child is a stutterer, maybe talk to the parent and see, I don't know, I mean, see if there's any information that the parent can give the teacher. I just wish there was more in the school system and the education system for understanding and compassion, which I know we could all use, but
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't think it's fair if, Cameron was singled out one day actually by his teacher in grade 4, and I was so angry. I didn't do anything about it. I should have, but I didn't. But I was just so annoyed that the teacher would be, one to single him out. I mean, if your teacher singles you out, what hope have you got with your team, with your classmates, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, he was grade 4. So you're pretty impressionable when you're grade 4.
Yeah, it upsets me to know a teacher would do that. There definitely is a big place for education and awareness in the public in general, and especially in the school system, because if you're teaching these kids about, and these teachers about, awareness and education of stuttering and communication disorders in general in the schools, they're going to grow up and be more compassionate about it.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's simple, but it doesn't happen.
No. And I know, I mean, well, Cameron, I'll boast a bit, but he's he's a really smart young man. And, I just think people who stutter maybe they're not listened to, because they can't get their words out. But they're brilliant. They're just smart. They're just smart kids.
As a parent who stutters, as a parent, that has a son who stutters April, what advice would you give to parents overall?
That's hard, Greg. That's hard. I would just tell them just to stop and listen. Like, it sounds simple, but just stop and listen, and just be patient. Like, I didn't have a whole lot of patience when he was in his teen years, and I don't, again, I feel guilt. I have a lot of guilt about that, but just be patient and listen, and just try and maybe, I don't know. I mean, ask if there's a way that you can help them, or ask if there's something that you can do that would help them, or just ask them, what could I do that would make would make your life a little easier? And maybe it's just to listen to them and just take time, and teach your family too. Like, teach your family. Because a lot of my family members, once I had said that I was, attending the support group with the Newfoundland Labrador Stuttering Association, they then asked me, well, what should I do when Cameron's talking to me and he's stuck? Well, just listen to him, and don't look away, because I was really guilty of that too. I would just look away. I would do everything to avoid looking him in the eyes, because I didn't know how to react. And I said, just listen to him. Just look at them the same way that I'm looking at Greg right now, or that I'm looking at Katelyn. Just look them in the eyes and just listen. And they were like, oh, okay, because we're not always sure, like, if I should look away. And I'm like, no. So again, it's education, and it's just taking time to educate yourself, taking time to listen, taking time to just be patient. That's my biggest thing. I learned it took me a long time to learn it. I don't pretend to know all that I'm talking about, but I'm trying. I'm trying.
I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about your experience with the support group, kind of how you found out about it and what it's been like for you.
Absolutely. I was kind of at a place. So is it maybe 3 years this year that you would have had the first public meeting?
The NLSA was founded in 2018, November 2018. We had our first support group, which you attended the first meeting, April.
I did.
And I think it was in March of 2019, I think. Oh no, it wasn't that early. No, it was in.
Yeah. It would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been.
you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, because it wasn't last year, the year of COVID. It wasn't the year of COVID. Because
correct.
we
Yeah.
used to have coffee and Timbits. It was really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. This is its second year now, I believe, second or third year.
I think this is the third. I think this would be the third,
Yeah.
maybe. Anyway, so yeah, I was at a point where I was hoping for some guidance. And when Cameron had attended the speech therapy, I just decided that I needed to do more. I needed to learn more, maybe, about stuttering and how to be a better mom with regards to the stuttering. So I ordered some books online, and there was nothing that was really geared towards the parent or the support of the person who stutters. It was books about stuttering. How can you help your stutter? Well, I already knew some of that from talking with Cameron and going to the speech language. I wouldn't go with him, but I was there. I would sit outside and I would help him with his little blurbs that he would have to read, for practice and things like that. So, but what I wanted to know was, how could I do better? None of the books that I looked at helped me with that. So I was kind of thinking, I really wish there was a support group for people who stutter, or for families. There has to be something out there. And it just so happens that I turned on Facebook one day, literally turned it on, and one of the first things I saw was a blurb about an upcoming support group for people who stutter. And Greg had posted it. I don't even know how I saw it. It was just, I guess it was a public post, and Greg's name was there, and there was a contact number, and I thought, this is too good. So I emailed Greg and said, I'd love to come. I have a son who stutters. And so he sent me the information for that first meeting, and I went to the meeting, and I was terrified. Absolutely terrified, because I was sitting around a table with people who stuttered, and I had never been in the company of anybody else who stuttered except my son. And I was fascinated by the different types of stuttering. That still fascinates me. The way that people stutter is so different. And I was terrified. So we went around the room and we started at the table, and I tend to talk a lot and I'm a bit emotional. So I started talking, and then I start crying because I was just so happy. Number one, I was happy to be there. And number two, I was frightened to death. So yeah, we went around the table, and then each person spoke and talked about the reason why they were there and a little bit about them. And then Allison O'Brien was sitting across the table from me, and she started to speak, and I froze like a deer in the headlights, because I didn't know how to react. So again, it goes back to, do I look away? Do I stare? Do I stare her down? I did not know what to do. And I just froze. And so as we went around, the meeting, she called me out on it, and because one of the other moms that was there said, I want to know, when you're talking and you're stuck, or what should we do? Like, what do we do as parents or as people who, as support people? And she said to this other mom, well, you did great. You sat back, you were relaxed, you were in your chair, you were just listening to me. And she looked across the table at me and pointed at me and said, you look terrified. And I just froze and said, yeah, I don't know what to do. And I started to cry again. And she said, you just look so uncomfortable. You just wanted to get up and run away. And I said, yeah, I did. Yeah. And, I just remember that because I didn't know how to act. And so I kept going back. I went back every month to the meetings, and I just felt like so much, just so much more comfort. Every time I went back, I was just more comfortable. And with the whole, it's not I don't even know what you'd call it, just the whole atmosphere of sitting around a table with people who stutter. It doesn't bother me. It's not that it bothers me. I don't like that term, but I have such a comfort there now, whereas before I did not know how to react. So I have gained so much from the group. And I just hope that other parents, especially of younger people, I really hope that younger parents of people who stutter know that the group is out there, because I think it does make a huge difference for parents and families of people who stutter.
For many parents, when they're thinking about joining, when they're thinking about attending a support group for people who stutter, that causes a lot of parents a lot of anxiety just to make that step, to make a call and to attend a meeting. So what advice would you give parents who are considering attending a group?
Oh, just go. Like, just go to the meeting, or just reach out first. If you don't want to full out go to the meeting, reach out and email the association, or email yourself, Greg, or email and just make the first contact. It's a super group of people. It's not a scary group of people. And I think everybody is there for the same reason. Everybody wants to learn and educate each other. So I think it would, I know it made a huge difference for me. And I just would hope that other parents would make the jump, or caretakers or teachers, if there's teachers out there who have children who stutter in their classes, to reach out and learn.
I definitely think that that's something that we should look into, is publicizing it in the schools for teachers, so they know about this and know that it's open to them, because I've heard stories of teachers just not knowing what to do.
No, and we don't, and you don't know what to do, right? It goes back to the same, you don't know what to do. And when you're a teacher, I can't imagine being a teacher these days, because you have so many students in your class with so many different, things going on. And if you've got a child who stutters, that poor kid is probably not getting to say a whole lot in class. And, I think I've said that in the meetings too before. I think that getting into the schools, and I know it's not easy, but getting into the schools with a poster or an email to the administration saying, can you at least email this out to your teachers? We are here, and if you're a teacher and you have questions, or of a parent who might avail of these meetings, please share. I think that would be really important, because I think the younger that the parents get involved, I think it makes a huge difference. I would hope it would make a huge difference.
So, April, now, do you have any questions for Katelyn and I? And any comments you'd like to make before we close?
No, I congratulate you for doing this. I think it's great. I think it helps with the with the awareness. And I know podcasts are, the cool way to go now. So, so I give you kudos for that. I think it's really important. And I know I'll be sharing a lot more of the podcasts that I see come up, because I think I really think it's important. I think it's very eye-opening to hear from people who stutter, to hear, ways that we can help family members of people who stutter, and just to get the word out there. So.
All right. One last thing before we go. We've talked a lot about what you would say to other parents or to teachers about stuttering, about people who stutter. What's like, if you could pick one thing to say to the public about stuttering, what would it be?
I think it goes back to what I learned, what I took from the movie, When I Stutter, from John Garson. I think it is that the problem is not with the people who stutter. The problem is not the people who stutter. It's how the people who don't stutter react to the people who stutter. I think that is the biggest thing that I took. And one of the biggest things that really hit home was that we are the ones that need to change, and we are the ones that need to educate ourselves, and we need to educate others, so that people who stutter don't have the issues that they have with the general public. So that's my biggest thing.
It's a great note to close us out on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, April, for your support, and
no problem.
and for being an advocate and an ally of people who stutter. Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Some Stutter La, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering, has so much to talk about. Let's start listening.
This has been an episode of Some Stutter La, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering. Some Stutter La is hosted and produced by Greg O'Grady, Katelyn Mayo, Emily Murphy, Dr. Paul DeDecker, and Luca Dinu. Some Stutter La is available on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. You can also check out some of the Some Stutter La channel on YouTube. To ask a question, send us a comment or suggestion, or just to get in touch, find us online at Some Stutter Podcast on Instagram or Some Stutter La Pod on Facebook. Thanks for listening.